Hey, welcome to the Reverend McKenzie Network. I am Reverend Mashakati McKenzie, and I want to start. We are starting a new series. It's all things mental health. We're talking about mental health in the church, mental health at your job, mental health with your kids, mental health all spaces. And I want to bring in my guest host, Reverend D. All right, Reverend D, let everybody know who you are, what you're about, and how is mental health important to you.
Hey everybody, my name is Darnell Rice. I'm the CEO and founder of Embrace. And Embrace, what we do is we do trauma recovery and trauma. Because the thing is, we have to remember that trauma is recovery, and recovery is trauma. So I've had Embrace over 7 years. It was out of my own trauma, and trauma, it hits you all different angles, but especially mental health. And so for me, mental health is important because it's a journey. And sometimes we don't understand the importance of mental health, especially when we are dealing with it. I've seen it in so many different ways in my life, but also working in the barbershop and seeing barbers and stylists come together and talk about mental health concerns and just being open and having a safe space. And it's important to have those safe spaces as well. So I'm really eager to talk about it in more detail, but we can go back and and let you know what it is. So I'm excited about it. I'm excited about just talking about it.
Absolutely, mental health is definitely important. I love the work that you do in Arkansas and how you are impactful. Not to be selfish here, but to be selfish is that you impacting the Black community when it comes to barbershop. To be even more specific, Black men in the barbershop, because that's where Black men feel the most comfortable, where they're in the barbershop, they are just chopping it up. But truth be told, it's the sometimes the only time that our Black men get care or get to be authentic, get to pour out their emotions. And I love the work that you do. So I'm thankful for your partnership. I thank you for what we are going to build here. I thank you for all the people who are a part of the network and that are tuned in right now. So our topic for tonight is mental health in the church. Mental health in the church. You might think that's a oxymoron, but or a contradiction. How can you have mental health in you're in the church? But truth be told, there is a lot of battle with depression. There's a lot of battle with anxiety. There's a lot of battle with self-identity within the church. And I think that's some of the problems that the church face, right? There's some of the problems that we have not addressed because of trauma, trials, and tribulations, because we are afraid of the stigma. So let's talk about stigma for a minute. The stigma of depression, stigma of mental health. So brother D, so what is your idea, or how can people overcome, or let's talk about the stigma of mental health, especially in the church.
Historically, yeah, especially in the church, historically, mental health is a taboo subject. We don't talk about mental health in the church because we don't want to seem to be uh, to have a concern or issue. We always have to be historically be strong enough. We have to be strong. We have to be. We can't show any weakness, and that to me that is the most distasteful, disrespectful thing to do. Especially to say to someone that may be experiencing mental health concerns. The church is a social hospital, but at the same time, we have to be equipped to educate our parishioners, but educate our leaders and how to connect with resources in the community. Because, of course, in the church, especially in the Black church, you have all these different professions in the church. You have therapists, you have psychologists, you have these different professions in the church. But guess what? Why don't we bridge the gap and start having mental health seminars in the church? Because then we will be able to educate our parishioners of where the resources are readily available. Um, and so back in October, we did a mental health seminar for clergy, and it was very powerful. Was able to get clergy in the room only and be able to have those conversations. So, what I would love to hear your take on that too, Reverend McKenzie, because you know we as leaders we often deal with our own concerns as well.
Right. And so we do deal with our own concerns. In seminary we read a book called Leading While Bleeding or something like that. It basically was talking about how we be hurting as pastors, as leaders, that we struggle and we have our problems, but we can't bleed on the people. And so we have to be intentional about our mental health, about our spiritual health, about our physical health, because that's the only way that we can be the best pastor, the best leader, the best caretaker of the people, if we are taken care of. And that's why I'm a firm believer on boundaries and setting boundaries and sticking to my boundaries, because mental health for me is very important, because I've had my fair share and my fair scares of mental health because of my own self identity. And so to be a pastor and to be aware of my own identity, I can then not see mental health in all these spaces where people are battling depression, people are battling anxiety, where people are battling self identity. And but to go back to me and my own testimony is that I had to be okay with me. I had to look in the mirror and love me regardless of what someone else has said to me. Even if they have said it and it's been embodied or embedded in me, I had to then learn how to disassociate my own thoughts, because some things are embedded in you that are not true about you, but you have believed it and you have believed it to be true. And so, not to jump too far in there, I want to give our credentials because I don't want you to think that we're just two people talking on social media. We have lived experience of mental health, and then we have been practicing mental health as well, meaning that we've been walking alongside of people as pastors, pastoral care, and then as community liaisons. My degree is in theology and psychology, and possibly pursuing my doctor's degree in organized leadership or in theology. And so I am a big firm believer in calling out our mental health, especially for the church, especially for the church. The church is a ER, and we need to know that there's people that's dealing with depression, dealing with anxiety, and all the other ones as well, and they're in the church. And it doesn't, and because you are dealing with depression or anxiety or a personality, all those things, it doesn't take away how much you love God. It
Yes,
does not
yes,
diminish that you are
hmm
a Christian. It
right,
just
exactly.
helps you to know that there is something a little different, and it's
Yeah,
okay.
mhm. Yeah,
But
it's
go ahead.
okay. It's okay. It's okay. And another thing too. So I'm a mental health advocate. I'm not a therapist. Let's get that straight. But I am a mental health advocate. I have lived experiences as well too, from my mother to to my father and to myself. And also working in the field as an advocate is very important. I love my therapist. I love my psychiatrist and my psychologist. But it's also working together as one. So another thing is too is that, like you said, I have a background in social services. I have a background in management and leadership, and I'm pursuing a master's in divinity at SMU as well too. So, just having those credentials are very important. But also, when you're speaking to people, just in general, a lot of people don't want to know your credentials. They want to know if you care. And
Right.
that's another thing too, because our community, when you go into communities, especially when I'm going into communities, I don't talk about my accomplishments or my credentials. I'm bringing my authentic self into the room.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's important too, when you talk about the boundaries, you talk about, self-care. and you talk about the different levels, because it's different levels to mental health, and the
Mm-hmm.
different levels as far as depression, PTSD, anxiety. It's different levels to those. But guess what? I can love the Lord, but I can still rock with a therapist.
Absolutely. A therapist is just like a pastor. They're called to that. They're called to hear you. And um, I was always taught that a therapist is your paid best friend. Is your paid best friend because they are they can't go out and tell you business, but you can tell all your business to them, and then you get positive feedback. Going to a therapist or going to a psychiatrist, or even if you have to take medicine for a while to get the serotonins and dopamines levels in your brain to balance out, you can do that. And I'm saying that as a pastor. I'm not telling you that your faith doesn't matter. I wear glasses and I'm a pastor, right? Because if I take these glasses off, I'm blind as a bat, right? And so our mental health is similar to that. If we know that we need help, we should be getting the help that we need, or we're gonna always be blurry. I'm gonna always look like how I'm looking right now, even though I can't see me until I look at this later. But you're gonna always be blind Betty trying to see, but you are so depressed. You got this negative cloud over you. You haven't dealt with your trauma. You hadn't dealt. Truth be told, let's call a spade a spade. And the spade is a lot of our mental health comes or stem from our childhood, and we have not really dealt with the little baby that's on the inside of us, the infant, or even the teenager that got hurt or experienced and saw some things. We have not dealt with that trauma. If you even start with your childhood, and you would notice as an adult the reason why you move the way you move, why you accept the things you accept, the reason why you feel the way you feel because of what somebody said, or a trauma that you went through back then. And so we got to start with our childhood, in my opinion. What do you think?
I really think that too, but also it goes back to because you got intergenerational trauma. Think about the
Oh yeah.
mother, and she's pregnant with the unborn child. If that mother is experiencing trauma, then that child is going to experience the same trauma as well. So it's like poverty. If that mother was in poverty, guess what? That child is going to experience it. So coming
Poverty.
out the womb, that that child is going to experience it. So we have to decide when we're going to start to heal. You don't have to. You got to start somewhere, but don't allow the trauma to dictate your healing journey.
That's a word right there. Don't let your trauma dictate your healing journey, because it is a journey. It's not something that happens overnight. You didn't get the way you are overnight. It took time to build the mountain of your heart, or the wall around your mental health. It is going to take time to be freed from it as well. And so, brothers and sisters, is there anybody out there that's willing to admit that their mental health is rocky, depending on the season? Have you ever paid any attention? Have you ever paid it any attention that when it rains, you feel a certain way? Or when the sun is out, you feel a certain way? Or when it's cold, you feel a certain way? Have you ever really sat down and observed your own self and your own mental health? And that's what I asked the church too. Is like, have you ever church just stop, or let me not say church because I want to be more specific. Christians, people who go to church, people who believe in God, who maybe not even go to church every Sunday. Have you ever just stopped and dissected yourself and checked in with yourself? I had the privilege, I can't remember what month it was, November, to fly to Arkansas and to be with Reverend D with one of his conference. And it was beautiful because people was talking about mental health, and their exposure to it was based on their language. Some people were still against therapy. Some people like, just go to the Lord, just go to the Lord. The Lord will help you. And I agree that the Lord will help with help. The Lord will help with help, but it's important to go get that help. brother, can you tell us a little bit more about the workshops you host in the great state of Arkansas?
The great country of Arkansas. No, I'm just kidding.
The country.
The country. Yeah. So, we do a lot of workshops around healing, around trauma recovery, mental health. And so what we do is, we talk about just healing, how healing happens. And so our focus is really on healing because I had to pivot because, when you think about domestic violence, sexual assault, mental health is connected. So basically all of those components of embrace is embraced because I have lived experiences in all three. So I had to understand how mental health impacts all three. And so for me, it's a calling. It's a life journey. And I tell anybody, in order to heal, you gotta get uncomfortable. You have to look yourself in the mirror and say, okay, I need to start healing because, like you said, the bleeding on people is real. You can bleed on people and don't even know it that you're bleeding on people.
Mm,
So,
mm.
you got to make sure that you understand, okay, let me take a step back and let me not bleed on people.
Right. Right. And is how do you know when to step back if you're not observing yourself? When you're not doing the work that you need to be doing. It's important for you to do that work because if you don't do that work, you are going to bleed on self, bleed on people. And here's the thing. Let me show you let me help you with one step. One step of knowing that you're bleeding on someone is when someone says hello, you are frustrated. When things don't go the way you think, you automatically just jump off the cliff. Like you don't have a balance. Or it's quite the opposite, where you hold it in and you quiet about it, and but you are on the inside of you, you are on fire. You are self-sabotaging. You are figuring out how to get out of the way. Let me hear tell you my testimony. I never would sit to a door with my back to it because I don't trust who might come through that door. So it's a trauma response. Not saying that somebody might pop out and kill me, but it might pop out and scare me. And so I have to be able to see the exit. I gotta know where the exits are because it's important for me to know how to get out of a situation. I'm always that person. You might start at 100 in my life, but I'm always looking for the exit. I'm
And you
always,
know what,
how do I get out of
man,
this?
that exit. But here's the thing: that's that flight, freeze, or flight mentality.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that we talk about that in sexual violence when you work
Mm-hmm.
with victims. And a lot of times they say, well, what why did you fight? Well, I just froze. And it's that basically defense mechanism that tells us, okay, either you going what we gonna do? We gonna flight, freeze. So it's important to understand where we are as individuals, but it's okay. It goes back to mental health. It's okay to not be okay. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay to say, you know what? I need help. I look, y'all. I need Jesus. I need my therapist.
Mm-hmm.
Hands down. I need
Mm-hmm.
them every week, every week. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's important. We have to normalize the conversations as clergy, but also as a community, as a church community, and say, hey, pastor, I need some help. Can you direct me to those resources? You know, because as clergy, we got the keys, not all of them, but we
Mm-hmm.
have the keys to resources, to connections. Because if
Mm-hmm.
you think about it, we're coming up on a holiday, MLK. Dr.
Mm-hmm.
King was not just a pastor, but he was a connector. He
Mm-hmm.
connected so many people on so many different levels. And so as we think about mental health, we are connectors in the universe. We're connectors in our community. And so it's important to understand where we are emotionally. And and Reverend McKenzie, like you said, it's important to know your boundaries, to know when
Mm-hmm.
it's okay to when it's okay to pass the baton.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And thinking about MLK holiday, right? We at we in 2026 see MLK as a grand thing. The church celebrated, the school celebrate Martin Luther King. But can we think about the trauma that came with his death? Can we talk about the trauma that the church went through because he was a leader in the church? So talk about Martin Luther King and then talk about the trauma that his kids went through from his dad, their dad being stolen. His wife went through that his that their her husband was snatched from her. Right? So we talked about the legacy of MLK, but then we can talk about the mental health that came associated with his assassination. And what the mental health that came along with it was despair, darkness, anger, sadness, and people didn't know how to come out of it. We're still trying to figure out who is going to be our next spokesperson, even in 2026, because MLK, Martin Luther King, was a phenomenal speaker. He was a phenomenal leader. He didn't allow politicians to stop him from doing the things that he knew God has already said to him. The man was only in his 30s, when he did what he did, and he was not apologetic about any of it, and he stood firm. But his death harmed the community. His death caused confusion in the community. His death caused trauma in the community. All the hashtags out here, let's be honest. We see all these hashtags, they cause trauma. I can tell you that I can read about MLK and realize that there is trauma there, but I was most traumatized. The hashtag that traumatized me the most was the Trayvon Martin hashtag, and George Zimmerman getting off from killing him. That tore me up, but it also pushed me to the church. It also pushed me to do missions. It's also pushed me to be a chaplain. It also pushed me to be able to tell people that when we see trauma, when we see people getting their life taken off of them, we are being traumatized. But we so used to it, we don't realize that it's trauma. When people talk about us, we are being traumatized by these situations. And so the church solution is to say, baby, pray. I've been praying, right?
Man,
I've
been
been
praying. Look,
praying.
been praying hard. Been
Been
praying
praying
hard. Been praying
hard.
hard.
Trusting
Yeah,
and
hard.
believing
Been
in the
praying.
Lord. But
Yes, yes. But
Lord, this is hard.
it's
Go
hard.
ahead.
Look. Like I'm gonna tell you, like it's for me. 7 years ago when I was started in mental health, mental health movement, and working with a grassroots organization, and we training those barbers and stylists. That was basically for me a point of leadership, a point of, okay, Darnell, it's time for you to extend your wings and really start focusing on coming back to the church, because I experienced that trauma of of church, of church hurts, of church hurt. And it was like, I'm done with the church, but
Mm-hmm.
it was so many different events that happened. COVID, my mother passing, my grandmother passing, my brother passing, all those different traumas pushed me towards my calling.
Mm-hmm.
And which means is that I'm for our people all day, every day, all
Mm-hmm.
day. And I
Mm-hmm.
had to make sure that I separate the two at the end of the day, because when you talk about Dr. King, that trauma, it's like living the trauma all over again. It's like, okay, like you said, stepping up. And we as clergy, we as mental health advocates, community liaisons, we have to stand up. We have to say, you know what, enough is enough. Stand up, stand your ground. Hey, 10 toes down, and say, hey, I'm going to stand up, and finding that village, because the village may be someone across town or someone in another state, to come together and say, "Hey, let's work together. Let's start this process." So mental health is is a must. It's not
Mm-hmm.
just something that you do, it's a lifestyle. It's a marathon. It's not just one day and you drop the mic. No, it's making a conscious effort every day. So I want to know, Reverend McKenzie, like when you look at our leaders and past and present, do you see yourself in those leaders?
Absolutely. I always want to say that I'm a mixture of MLK, Malcolm X, and James Baldwin. I will say that I'm a mixture of all that. I'm not going to say I'm gonna tell you to turn the other cheek all the time, but I'm not gonna always tell you to go fight your neighbor either. But what I am going to tell you is to always know who you be and always stand firm on that and don't allow nobody to tell you anything different. And if you know that you who you are, you will move forward. But all three of the people that I just named, all the men that I just named, we don't ever talk about the women side of it, right? We don't talk about
Yes,
the
yes, yes,
women leaders that impacted the black community, that impacted our life. So we are traumatized as women because we're put to the side because it's always masculinity. Men, let me just say men. My words today. Men that are moving forward, which shows strength. I don't want to take away from that. Which what we always want to put forth is that we are empowering our men. And so when I think about those three men that I just named, they all came with characteristics that threw people off. Martin Luther King was a smart aleck, right? Malcolm X was a snap. He snapped, and James Baldwin he was a little different. He was creative. He was all over the place when it comes to creativity, and people didn't always understand that. But they all had purpose. They all also dealt with mental health, and they all stood firm in the black community, 10 toes down, and always called the community out for their stuff. And that's the beautiful thing about being black. We know that we are not perfect people, and we will never come into a space and thinking we're perfect. But what we're not going to let you do is to diminish us, demolish what we have worked towards. And I'm thinking about MLK's death, think about Malcolm X's death. It was traumatizing, but what we learned from it is it's not going to be one leader moving forward. It's going to be thousands of leaders moving forward. Was going to be
yeah,
MLK came out of Georgia and he traveled the world and we followed him. He was one leader and millions of followers. Now is thousands of leaders and trillions of followers. Because if one person can do if all the thousands of leaders can be on one page, the followers will follow suit. And I think I'm going too far off into leadership. I want to stick with mental health. So I guess our next conversation can be about leadership. Is that it's important to know that mental health and the trauma of our community goes with us. Like you were saying earlier
mhm,
about poverty. But the difference with poverty is, or think about poverty, the only difference between a rich man and a poor man is where they was born. And mental health is similar. Your mental health is based on your environment and where you was born. If you was born into privilege, you don't know what it means to struggle with having food or clothes or house. But you might not know what love is. You might not know what intimacy is. You might not have that close bond relationship that somebody in poverty might have. And so we might be rich and poor in certain areas and where we might be looking at other places, but that's what the scripture says, do not covet. Do not look at someone else and be jealous of what they have. It's important to know whom you be. And that's where I will always go back to. That's at the church. If I'm doing pastoral care, if I'm doing whatever type of ministry, it's important to know whom you are and to live into who you are, because when you know who you are, when people talk about you, you know how to deal with the circumstances. And so I'm gonna leave it in your hands. So for you too, brother, is was our leaders' deaths traumatizing in your opinion?
yeah, and, most definitely. Watching the movies, going to plays, the documentaries. I mean, it's I have to be very mindful and careful of what I take in because you can re-traumatize yourself all over again.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding that, yes, it's those are our leaders, true enough. But like you said, mental health is so important as we continue to build leaders, but knowing where we are on an everyday basis, taking inventory, um, and just doing the little things to to give yourself rest. I was looking at something
Mm-hmm.
today, and it said seven, seven creative rest things, and so it
Mm-hmm.
talked about emotional rest, physical rest, digital rest. Those are just the name of few. And just taking that time out to give yourself rest. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, 80-20 rule. Making sure that hey, blocking off some time. I think it's important to have schedules.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you're in leadership, when you have all these obligations, you're pulled in so many different directions. It's important to have those, schedules and everything, but schedule some time to talk to a therapist if you need to, talk to a psychiatrist,
Mm-hmm.
psychologist, talk to an advocate. I mean, like you all, it's okay. It's okay
It's
not to be
okay.
okay, but it's okay. It's okay to reach out to your pastor, reach out to your colleague, or and let them know, hey, someone that you trust, someone
Mm-hmm.
that you can really confide in and really have a real honest conversation about where you are. Um, working in this field, working in mental health really showed me a lot about myself
Mm-hmm.
because I knew that I had a lot of trauma from childhood that I needed to process and work through. And like you said, I believe it starts way before childhood. It starts at conception
At
in the
conception.
womb.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I definitely agree with that for sure. And thinking about the church, I think going into church and thinking about people who don't like change, and I'm one of those people. It takes me a minute to get ready and to inhale, to take in the change because
Right,
change is hard, change is uncomfortable. And so when I think about the church and I think about mental health, is that the reason why we don't have change is because the people are dealing with mental health. People are dealing with trauma. People are dealing with this is the only way and we should be doing it because mom and daddy did it, and you know, but that is not always working. But if it's working, keep doing it. Right. But we know that certain things aren't working because we're not moving forward. We're not making the progress. And that happens with our lives. I know speaking personally when it comes to mental health, when I get overwhelmed, I gotta go for a walk. In the church, I gotta walk away from the church. As a pastor, I don't always get my spiritual, because pastors got need spiritual loving too, right? Spiritual healing
right,
too, and spiritual, we
yeah,
have to have that too. And so I don't always get mines from the church. I don't always get my freedom from the church. I might get my freedom in having conversations like this, or having conversation with my best friend, or conversation with my parents, or conversations with people that's going to feed me, that's going to encourage me. I don't always get that because people think pastors are superheroes, right? And so when I know that people see me as a superhero and I shouldn't have any problems, I then I then believe that I look at them and how they see themselves. Because if you say that I don't need rest, are you giving yourself rest? Because you are projecting onto me what you see about yourself. And that's the thing when it comes to mental health. People only can see things from one lens, only from one lens, and is their own, and it's from their own. Eh,
yeah.
Go
Mhm.
ahead.
And I was gonna say too, the trusted confidant, trusted person that you know can give you tricks, trades, and give you, some really good tips to help you start. Journaling is good. That's
Mm-hmm.
one tip. Meditation. You can do a
Mm-hmm.
5-minute meditation. There are so many apps you can do. You can do Headspace. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
You can, like I said, grounding exercises is important. Like go and ground yourself with the earth. Um, and really start, just start small and then work your way up. And start really noticing. Okay, make small changes. The small changes
In your
make big
food,
differences.
in your
Yeah, yeah.
food.
Oh, that's a whole nother topic.
Why you say
A
that?
whole
Because
nother
you
topic.
think food is part of mental health as well?
Yeah, what because think about the chemicals in the food. It can alter
Mm.
your mood. Yeah, just I mean that's a whole nother segment. That's a whole nother
Yeah.
segment. So when you talk about mental health, it's just important that the church understands. Hey, you can love the Lord, but you can also have a therapist and have a psychiatrist.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I asked a question on social media. How is it with your health? And I would say today, right now, I'm thankful that my mental health is solid. I couldn't say that 15 years ago. I couldn't say that 15 years ago. Saved, sanctified, and filled with the Holy Ghost. But I could not have said that my mental health was stable because I had to go through some things. I had to deal with some things. I was already going through some things. Don't get me wrong. I was already going through enough, but I had to deal with it and then come up with tools I had to be given tools to be able to deal with what was coming up against me. And like you said, one of the strategies, even I want to tell the church is that's why it says write it down and make it plain in the scriptures, is that it's important to journal. It's important to write down your feelings. It's important to call the thing that's bothering you out. Name it. Name it. Because when you name it, you give it over to the Lord, and the Lord takes its power away. Call that thing that if it's depression, if it's sadness, name that thing and then go see somebody and talk to somebody. Because you can't, the beautiful thing too about the church and why a lot of black folk, a lot of poor folks lean towards the church to get their help is because of the fellowship. I remember being depressed, and the first thing they told me to do is not to be isolated. And what does the text tells us about fellowship? That yes, we can worship in our cars in our house, but it's important to fellowship amongst like-minded people. And so we got to be able to fellowship. We could fellowship online. There's thousands of us on social media every day. Are you building communities in those spaces? Are we building communities within the church that are going to help us sustain generation after generation? How is your mental health? That's the question on the table.
Yeah, I can say the same thing. Like I was having a hard time because I had so much grief.
Mm,
Dealing with bereavement. It was back to back to back. And then not only that, just cousins. Passing away, just different things. It was very hard, and so grief is another trauma as well. Uh,
mm-hmm,
and it can have implications too. And so, for me, I am definitely at a better place. I'm way much better than I was, I'd say even 10 years ago. Um,
mm-hmm,
but like you said, going through those situations in your life and understanding that, God is still here, God is with us.
mm-hmm,
And so it's important to have that team, have those team of individuals around you, the mental health, advocates, the psychiatrists, the psychologists, the therapists. It's okay. And so, like they said, just do that and just start somewhere, church family. Start somewhere. You don't have to know all the answers.
mm-mm. But
Because
just
God
start.
will give you some answers. Just start. Just start. I mean, it may not look good, look decent, but just start somewhere and just
Mm-hmm,
know that you got somebody that cares. Um, and so my goal for this year is to to continue the crusade of healing and recovery.
Mm,
Because as a Black and Brown community, we have to heal because the generations before us need a blueprint.
mm,
We can't keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect a different result.
mm, mm. Powerful, powerful, brother, powerful. So, Mister, do you want what you want me to call you? Or you want me to call me Darnell, Reverend Wright? What you want me to call you? I've been struggling all
Just,
night.
just, just,
I've been calling you
just,
all
just,
kinds of different names.
I'll call the names, but just call me, just call me, just call me D. Just call me Pastor
All right.
D. That's what they call me.
All right, Pastor D. That's what I call you. But your points were very, very, very well made. Is that we got to come together, not just for us, but for the next generation, because they're watching us. They living out whatever we do. They eat the same food or they drink the same sodas and all these type of things. So we got to be able to deal with our mental health. We say we want these things, but are we prepared to receive the things in which God has sent for us? Are we really, have we cleared out our mind? Have we cleared out our hearts? Have we really dived deep into us to know that we got some stuff on the inside of us that we got to deal with? And guilt and grief, I think, should be our next conversation. Guilt
Oh
and
yeah,
grief.
yeah, yeah.
Grief will drive persons who are the nicest people to be the meanest people.
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah, yeah, definitely. But I really think too, continue the conversation on mental health, but also, those components of grief and guilt, is so important too in the church as well too, because a lot of times, when things happen in the church, especially around mental health, it can grieve. You know how you say when you grieve the spirit, the Holy Spirit, but then when you grieve, like grieve in the church, that's a whole other dynamic as well. So yeah, I would love for us, to continue the conversation on that too. And that would be good.
that sounds amazing. I can't. So, y'all, look, that's going to be a wrap for the show tonight, and we are going to be back next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 7 p.m. Central Time, where Pastor D is. Here at the Reverend McKenzie Network, you have an opportunity to worship with us on Sunday at 9 a.m. Bible study at 8 a.m. No, sorry, at 8 a.m. on Tuesdays, and then every morning that we have a message from Reverend Payne. And so I pray that you come back, you link up, you share, you follow, and join the walking ministry, and just be a part of the family. We appreciate you. We see y'all next week. Blessings.
Peace.